This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you that, but it's just for our archives.
So if you wouldn't mind, Maurice, and I didn't give you a heads up on the chat to let you know that, and feel free to use the chat from time to time if you have questions that we may not be seeing you waving your hand, but you know, you'll get caught up with everybody else and what they're here for as you're listening. But would you mind introducing yourself tonight? And
I am Maurice Graham. I'm a part of Elder Pride. I am part of the group that meets Monday through Friday. And we have discussions on current events, spiritual matters, the spiritual teachers that appear on YouTube, and we have an opportunity to dissect some of the things that they are sharing with us. I'm also involved with doing social justice work around creating a courageous conversation around race and issues of inequity and injustice and how to resolve those things. I am part of Heart and Soul. Haven't physically been there for 2 years, but I show up every Sunday. What I want to get from this experience, I would say a greater understanding of how to apply principles of love to circumstances, situations, conditions, relationships, etc. How to see from the perspective of spirit more than the perspective of being human, a human incarnation of spirit.
Thank you. Welcome. We're glad to have you here, and we're just going to hold the space also for Jamie, who is still recovering and hopefully will be joining us. She'll be having some special tutoring to catch her up if she chooses to join us, because as the curriculum says, you can have 2 absences, and then you know, the class wouldn't be on the agenda, the docket for credit. It doesn't mean that you don't come. It just means you don't get the credit for the class unless you've made it up. And so Jamie is in her recovery from her surgery. So we just hold her in consciousness as whole, perfect, and complete, and that we will have another square added next week. So during the course of the week, when you think of each other, and I'm going to invite you to do that, bring each other into consciousness. In building a healing consciousness, it goes beyond, we're working on ourselves, and we're working on the dream that we have, the vision we have for the world that would work for everyone. That's part of my vision, which is why I'm at Heart and Soul, which is why I do what I do at the other community I'm with, is a world that works for everyone. Well, part of that is bringing into consciousness more than just myself, because in the unity consciousness, I'm attracting and drawing in. So, you know, whether you knew it or not, and there's 4, 5 practitioners on this call, we hold you. We hold the consciousness that you walk into that knowing of the capital T truth of who you are and whose you are. And that, you know, as you make this journey, and we're at week 2, you know, by the time we get to week 8, the clarity that brought you, you know, the question that brought you here, and all of us are in a question when we say yes, at least from my belief system, and we're stepping into the question without knowing what that answer is. We may have a desire, but there's also a question that's pushing and nudging us along, and that our hope is that will be clearer for you. when you get to week 8 and when you're working on your project and you're looking at how do I take this out into the world using the principles, using the tools, and what can I do, you know, as a, whether you're a licensed practitioner or a practitioner in training or your very first class. And we have everybody represented here. So I love it. And it's like we're one, and wherever the level of consciousness is, everybody gets to step up to that place. It's not like we're right down here at the very beginning, but the consciousness that we're holding is welcome, and here you are right at this level and this unity consciousness. So I welcome each of you. And, you know, I heard last week what brought you here, what your goals were, and we're going to look at that a little bit later in your treatment homework for next week. But you may have a different clarity than you did last week. So you're not going to be married to what you said. It's you stepping into the now moment of, yeah, what do I want treatment for as to how and what I want out of this class in the end. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. I'm just trying to do some housekeeping. We talked last week a little bit about signing up for invocations, which is what Jack did. He rolled it into a spiritual mind treatment as well. And they're really two distinct things. And, you know, he really did a spiritual mind treatment, but it's the way we open the class. It's thanking Spirit in advance for already what's happening. We already know that it's a good class, that students are open and hearts are there, and that the discussion will be rich. And whatever it is that's downloaded to you when you close your eyes and it's your turn, it's that, you know, it really is gratitude, acknowledgement of Spirit, and, you know, and gratitude for what is to be. And please, practitioners, if I'm not clearly stating that, because I can sometimes make things a little bit more convoluted than they need to be. So please help simplify it, because I do not want anybody to walk away in confusion, which then now I get to speak about the confusion that I created last week in all the homework assignments. We talked a little bit about the reading of the Science of Mind book. And we said chapters 1 through 4, and then you had chapter 16. In your books, and I would hope that you've all gotten your manuals and downloaded it, and you're looking at that by now, because Jack has sent that to you. In your manuals, it gives you the homework. What Bonnie and I did with our students before was we assigned extra chapters, and we could call it extra credit, but they're elective. So I take full responsibility for the overload of, oh my, look at all we might have to do. Because that was not the intent. The intent was, it is such a rich book, and it is such a dense book. I have been around this teaching for 23 years. The first time I opened up the Science of Mind book, I was like, it was too much. It was like I was supposed to be eating steak when I really only wanted a little salad. I wanted an appetizer, but it felt like I was supposed to know everything. And I just want to say, particularly to anybody that's new or hasn't done a lot of delving in, or even recent inquiry and curiosity into the Science of Mind textbook, that go slow, look for the thing that pops out. You do not have to understand all the concepts, because this man synthesized everything. So every sentence is loaded. And so it's really what's speaking to you. And it's trusting that as you read, what will be yours will jump out at the page for you. And your mind, your eyes, your heart, your ears, everything else is going to take it in. It's going to be like planting the seed. and you're watering it, but you don't even know what the seed is. But that one thing out of that page or that chapter that spoke to you is what we're going to refer to moving forward as what were your glimmers? What came up for you? What spoke to you? We're not going to test you about anything that's in the readings. We're anticipating that you'll do the power of meditation and the activity and try it out and just see what comes up from that. And that you'll at least scan the readings and review the student material so that when you come, you'll have an idea. You'll know that you're in the right ballpark. But there's a lot of seats in the stadium, and you can take any seat in the stadium that you want from any vantage point, way up high, far away, or right up close, or right on the field, you know, knowing a lot more than maybe you did the last time you looked at the book. And if you haven't looked at the book before, it's like opening up. It's just an owner's manual. It's just an instructor manual at first. And it's like, what's the one thing that you can digest? Right. So I wanted to review that. And I did not mean last week to overwhelm you with a whole great deal of stuff. And it wasn't till after class when I'm looking at it and I go back into the material and it's like, oh, Bonnie. So I called her up and we had a conversation. It's like, oh, Jack, this is what we've done. And so, because, you know, people will do whatever they want to do with the material. You know, we're here to guide you towards your vision, guide you towards building this highly healing consciousness. We're not here to do, it's not old school. You know, do you know what this concept is? Do you know what this is? That's, you know, it's a play as you go and just get in the material and get wet. Just, you know, it's like splash about and see what sticks for you. Bonnie, do you have something to add?
I do. You know, I think that, thank you so much, because that's so important, is that, because I remember coming into this teaching with, what on earth is this book about? Get an editor, please, bullet points, synthesize, etc. But I think what's really important is to remember who Ernest Holmes was. Ernest Holmes was not a theologian. He was not an academic. He was a butcher. And he was curious. It was his brother that was a minister. And he became very curious. And by the time he had moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, he had this nice little job working as a community servant. And at lunchtime, he would talk about what he was reading. And pretty soon, all of the employees wanted to know more about what he was reading. And he ended up on Sundays having them over to his house, and he would tell them what he was reading. That eventually became the Beverly Hills Hotel with thousands. He synthesized so many different traditions. And from last week, the sheet that you had in your curriculum that synthesized the teaching of all of the religions and what's common was part of what he was doing. So the important thing is that you are the piece of it, and you are, the teaching has this teaching. You are God expressing itself. That's who you are, and you are individuated. And you are blessed and consecrated to do that. And so our job as a collective is to see that in each other and not to be fooled by situations, because we've been very conditioned about situations, illnesses, problems, politics, whatever. We've been conditioned that they're terrible, awful. Oh my God. But for every problem, what's in the problem, what comes out of the problem is a big solution. So if things get really dicey, it's time to look for what's emerging, what's coming out. And part of the curriculum, you'll see he goes over this over and over and over again. And prayer treatment It's just steps for you to begin to condition your mind to be able to see that. So it's like, there is testing. And if you want to go on to become a practitioner, there is testing, and it's rigorous and it's worthy. In other words, when you get a license as a practitioner, you have earned it. So it's like kind of this, comme ci, comme ça. Maybe this, maybe that. You're going to determine, because it is your journey. And part of our job is to bless you in doing that and to support you. And so we will be supporting you by not only sharing our own, but sharing what is curriculum, what is the rolling thunder that's in it. What parts do you feel the separation, so that we can assist you, maybe in seeing it different, maybe not. But in that way, I bless you. I bless you as teachers. You are a student here, and so am I, and so is Diana, and so is Reverend Jack. I bless you as teachers. You're going to teach. So let's teach. What did you get out of that reading? What did you get? What was your glimmer?
So it could be from the 1 through 4 chapter. It can be from doing your practice, or it could be chapter 16, which is what was assigned in the reading, or what came out in the student material. Any of those, what was the glimmer or the aha or something that shifted for you that before you didn't know, but you walked away with something? So whatever that is, and if you have something from each of those areas, fine, but we're going to ask you to be concise with it, and we're not going to be constrained by time, because time is one of those things that can be limited. We have a finite amount of time that we've agreed to be together, but we know that time is unlimited, and it's a construct of the human to put it into context. So we're going to ask you to be concise if you can. And then if we find you going off the trail, we might just bump you back up on the trail so that we can have other people can share too. And before we go there, the thing that Bonnie and I would love to have you experience is chapters 1 through 4 in the textbook is very rich. And that during this course of 8 weeks, if you could read one of those chapters and complete 1 through 4 plus your other readings, we see that that would enrich you in your journey. It's not to add to or take away time from you, but it will add to your understanding as you read one of those chapters and then read like 16 or 17 for next week. It'll come together a little bit more synergistic for you. But besides that, what spoke to you? What would you share from your glimmers?
I'll go.
Thank you.
So, God is as big as you let it be. So what that means for me is, as much as I allow, I will receive. And that when things aren't looking like they're going my way, for me to stop to see where the blocks are within me rather than looking out there. And that the more that I love myself, the more that I love God. So it's the one and the same. Or the more that I love God, the more I love myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm complete.
That's such a deep understanding, and thank you for that, because learning to love self is kind of a mystery. Many of us have struggled with that because our collective mind is pretty messed up about it. I know myself as a woman, I was really, really shocked around Naomi Klein's book that really revealed that if we women gave up one of our moisturizers, one, because we've all got a whole row of them in our bathroom, one that would make it possible for every girl child in America to go through college. And so the question is this: the moisturizer has much more to do with self-soothing, but it's also a conditioned response. And the point being is that when you refer to the blocks, Janice, I think it's really important because we all have had conditioning. We've all got something that's been told us that we have in our minds, and it goes in a loop. And it's, for us, it's self-love to find those places, to find those blocks and do prayer treatment on them so that we put into the subjective mind something that's true instead of what's false. So thank you very much. That was really important. Someone else. So what is first cause? What did you get out of that first chapter? What is first cause? What is it?
Well, I'll go because it kind of follows your question. One of the big things that I discovered was this sentence: the mind, little m, which we discover within us, is the mind, big M, that governs everything. This is the thing itself, and we should recognize its simplicity. And that's kind of hit me over the head like a brick, because I hadn't noticed that before, that my mind has with the access to the mind of God that governs everything. And when you talk about how big that is, I haven't yet discovered that. So I'm working on it.
Good. It's good to anchor it with up until now. In other words, up until now. This, I'm just going to confess to you, I always read everything that you guys are reading, again, no matter how many times I teach it. And I found new things. It's like the wonderful thing about the journey in this is that we are using the mind of God. And so it's like Hansel and Gretel. We're following the cookie crumbs. What will come to us in the great algorithms, right, comes right on time. Would you agree that it comes right on time?
Of course.
Yeah, this discovery is like a biggie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Someone else.
Oh.
How do I start? Well, what really struck me is it's very, as you had mentioned, Diane, very dense. And I found that I felt a little pressured. It's like, wow, how am I going to get through this in a week? Because I wanted to go a little bit slower with it. But it was very interesting that as I was reading it, certain things, questions would come up for me. And I would kind of like wonder, okay, well, how does he answer that? And lo and behold, perhaps in the next section, it was answered. So it was constantly kind of like reading, questions came up and they were being answered. And it was very straightforward. I've studied the I Ching for many years and astrology and stuff like that. And oftentimes it's kind of like there's a pause, some insight, and then there's like a lag before I have some sort of aha moment. But here it seemed to just follow in the next sentence or next couple of sentences. So it was actually quite, I don't want to say entertaining, but it was definitely an unfolding, a constant unfolding. And it's a huge tome, but I'll be interested to, continue to study it. I don't have any specific, details because they were so numerous. It's like I was thinking, okay, a friend of mine, his father passed away, and I was, kind of wondering, okay, how do I integrate that experience? How do I share where I'm at? And that question was answered in the next sentence. So I appreciated the synchronicity.
Yes, and there's a small book that Holmes wrote that you might be interested in. And it's called What Science of Mind Teaches, What Religious Science Teaches. Small book, but it tells you every tradition that he got this stuff from. And it cites it. So it's like a cornucopia of understanding what an incredible synthesizer this man was. He was synthesizing all the great traditions, and in doing so, he introduced us, and through the prayer treatment method, the great algorithm. Where do you start doing prayer treatments and they work?
Well, and Joel, as I was listening to you and having read myself, I'm thinking, wow, how masterful you were that the individuated mind that is you of God set it up that the book answered those questions.
Right.
Do you believe that you are that powerful, that your experience is based on the way you hold, think, and feel about something, because the universe is going to show up that way for you. Now, I don't know about anybody else, whether anybody else had that same experience of reading it, having a question, having it answered. That hasn't been my experience, but it was yours. And it's like that, it was matching and meeting you right where you were. And this book's written decades ago, but for you, it showed up that way. And I'm saying that because that's how life is. Mm-hmm. Not just this book, but life shows up based on what we've been putting in, our perception, what we say is the conditioning and the limitation, but what we do as we're studying it, it's like we go from here to here, and you get to see a greater vastness of information and knowledge that shifts the perspective, which is what healing a consciousness is all about, because most of this is all about keeping us safe, predicted, it's comfortable. But when we show up with curiosity, honesty, and integrity of, integrity is not the word that I want, inquiry, that something bumps open and then it begins to show you your life. Mm-hmm. So your life has been an inquiry. I can tell from just the 2 weeks, you're a man of inquiry. And so you have questions and you follow the breadcrumbs, and the breadcrumbs always lead you to the next answer that you're seeking, because that which you're seeking from is seeking you and a greater expression of you. So good job for demonstrating this is how life shows up, what we expect, what we put in. It's like if I want to enjoy a huge, delicious cup of coffee and I only give a little container, like I do the little petite cup, I'm not going to enjoy that big cup of coffee because the container I'm bringing is small and it will only go into the container that I'm coming from. Well, you went with a big cup and said, okay, I got these questions, and boom, there was an answer. There was an answer. And that's what I suspect how life shows up for you too.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. Who's next?
I gotta be honest, this reading is kind of dense for me. It's difficult. And for me, I can read 6, 7 books at one time. I couldn't do that with this book. I can't. And being in graduate school is even harder because I have books to read for that too. So when I think that I can put one book down and pick up another one, this is not the book to pick up. This was not one of those books that I can pick up and just read and be okay with it. And I wasn't okay with it. So I have to literally put down everything else and do one at a time, and do one chapter at a time. For me, anyway, I have to go slower. And I can sit here and brag about going faster and pick up anything and read it. Couldn't do that with this book. I cannot do that with this book. That's not to say that I won't do it. It's just to say that I know where I stand. For the first time, I know where I stand when it comes to doing something.
Right. And Avery, that's okay. That's okay. It's just to remind yourself that the mind that wrote this book is the mind that is reading this book. So that you can understand that whatever your way is the way. It's the way. It's not the same as reading the New York Times. It's not the same as reading textbooks. It's not. This is a metaphysical teaching. And metaphysical teaching is about teaching life. This is a big book, but it's bigger than this book, right? So I salute you for understanding that there's a difference between your academic work and this. What I'm going to ask you is, are you holding yourself in judgment because this book is a little bit more challenging?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so would you be willing to make that one of your first prayer treatments?
Yes.
Okay. Victory. You know, if you guys don't question this stuff, I'm going to throw out some big questions. So come on now. Come on. Who else? I'm going to start calling out names. Sandria.
I knew it. I just said, go call my name. That's what I said in my mind. Call my name. And then you said my name. I knew it was happening. Never asked and never challenged spirit because something will come up. So
Right.
I forgot something that Janice said at the end of what she was talking about. And I forgot, it left my mind just that quickly. And I just wanted to ditto it. And I can't remember what it was. So I'll think about it later. I can't remember.
I said something about loving, the more that I love me, the more that I love God, the more that I love God, the more that I love me.
That's the one. Thank you, Janice, because I realized in doing my mind treatments and declaring how much I love God, and then getting up and saying, God, I hate such and such and so about myself. And one time, you know, spirit doesn't sleep, unfortunately. And I wake up in the middle of the night with these things. I'm never drowsy. I've just come into consciousness. And what came in as I was awakened by spirit was, you can't possibly love me if you're not loving yourself. It just, one just cancel out the other. If you say you love me, then you have to talk and you have to think about yourself in the same terms. You have to think about, this is a sweet baby. This is, if I've shown myself up to you as love and passion and all these things, and you profess to love me, then you cannot out of the side of your neck say, I hate such and such about myself, because it just nullifies everything.
Right.
So I got that.
So can you accept it can you accept it, Sandria, as a grand adventure? No chainsaw massacres, but a grand adventure. How many ways can you love yourself?
I haven't counted yet, and I'm still looking. I'm still searching and looking. So I know that I have a personal, not a personal trainer, but someone who helps you with coaching, life coaching. And she was saying, when you get up in the morning, look at your behaviors and say, which ones are life affirming? And so if I get up and straighten up, I'm doing this for my life.
Right.
Which is another way of saying, this is how I'm loving myself in this moment.
Right.
So I was just, noticing today how many things I was doing that were life affirming things.
Yes. So can I give you an affirmation for a little while?
Sure.
Is that right?
Sure, I'm ready.
Okay. I am the gift.
Okay. That it?
Yep.
Okay. I think I can remember that one. Okay, I got it, Bonnie. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, who do we have to come after next?
I think that everyone has gone that has known the reading, with the exception of me.
Okay, go, Reverend Jack.
Well, it's so interesting. I love how the universe conspires to bring things together that might have, what I want to say, the reading in the Science of Mind textbook might have been the catalyst for the thought. And then the illustration shows up over here in another way. And just as Janice mentioned, and Betty, and some about expanding my mind and my attitude of self-love and loving myself, the lesson that came up for me this week was around boundaries. And to love myself is to honor the boundaries. And pretty much, who I am as a person, it's like, what else can I do? What else? No matter where it is, who else serves 3 congregations at once? It's really taking a look at that lesson and who I allow in, and also the energy of who I allow in and how they can steal, if you will. I can allow them to steal or take away from my calling. And then just in kind of a humorous little internet post is this kind of real New York Bronx kind of guy saying, when you go to a club, Sandria, you have to help me out with this because you've been to more clubs than I have. When you go to the club, there's a $10 charge. Everybody has to pay the cover charge to get in. And no matter what song and dance you put up, if you don't pay the $10, you don't get in.
Right.
So we are our own bouncers for our life and how we're loved.
True.
We get to say what is the cost for admission to our life and our experience. And if they don't want to pay, let them go. That's the universe showing, this is not the place for you.
Right.
And so I think it's just honoring that lesson this week of it's okay, and it's the most loving thing that I can do to set my own boundaries.
Right.
To be my own bouncer in that.
Right.
And oftentimes, when I have gone to the Science of Mind text or any of the readings that we're doing, I am often called to it to see what is mine to teach more than what is mine to learn.
Right.
But I also know simultaneously and at the same time, I must teach that what it is that I am to learn.
Right.
Now, of course, for me and my watch, the only way that I really learn it is to teach it.
Right.
You know, and so there was that. And so that was my takeaway for the week.
Well, my add to that is that one of the things that has been a very important lesson for me is to know that whenever I set a really strong intention, everything unlike it comes up first.
Yes.
And so it's like understanding that when you plant a garden, the first thing that comes up are the weeds. So it's not to be diverted, not to, oh boy, no, but to understand it and therefore go, oh, I can't wait to see what I'm going to do next. In other words, as you have discovered what boundaries mean, which is really important, because we've been conditioned in this culture, in your age and my age, we were supposed to give it all to all.
Right.
And it's, many of the youthful population look at you with blank, what? Because they have a different message.
Right. They're like, no way.
Right. But the most important point is to get that place where you can welcome anything that is unlike what you want into the table and love it, because you know that you brought it in for a good purpose. And it sounds like that purpose was boundaries, and that's terrific.
Yes.
But it's about welcoming in what happens as opposed to, it's welcoming in and finding that deep, deep divine mind that guides us and being willing to have love be at the center of it. Because it's self-love. It's self-love for Reverend Jack to love himself by setting some boundaries. Yes?
Yeah, exactly true. And I think Shonda Rhimes wrote a book a couple of years ago called Say Yes, which is opening the invitation to say yes to life. I want to write the book Say No. Right. Saying no can be just as empowering.
It's true. And I want to give you a different version of yes.
Yeah.
YES, yield energetically in spirit. Yield energetically in spirit. It's a different channel. It's a different channel. It isn't the yes of people pleasing or trying to do it all or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm going to yield to the answer here. And I'm going to wait for it. I'm going to be patient. And, very often it does show up as giving something away. A relationship, a job, an attitude, or whatever. But that the thing that I think was so important, and we're going to move to the next part of this, is learning how to be honest with ourselves. Learning how to say, this doesn't feel comfortable. Something doesn't feel quite right here, and to own it. So my beloved Diana, will you bring that part in? The whole business about telling the truth?
I have something to add.
Oh, good, Maurice. Thank you.
Okay. The one, yielding to energetically to spirit. That is a wonderful affirmation in itself, but in an acronym as well. We had a demonstration today of exactly that, yielding to spirit. I showed up last week at our group, our elder group, with deep concerns about a friend of mine who had fallen, and he got to the hospital and found that he had pneumonia, and he also had COVID. In addition to that, he had a flesh-eating bacteria in his system, shutting his organs down. And what I did was brought that to my group because of my concern, and I requested that we take an action that we had just seen demonstrated, a tool that we had just seen demonstrated by Anita Marjani. And she was suggesting that we see ourselves wrapped in a light of love, of spirit. And so what we did was we each practiced seeing ourselves as the light of love, and then extending that love, because there's no distance or time in spirit, to my friend Roy. And he had been on a ventilator for over a week, maybe a week and a half. And today he came off of the ventilator. We saw him whole, perfect, and complete, but we first had to see ourselves whole, perfect, and complete. And when that happened, we became able to transmit energetically that energy to my friend Roy and surround him, because there was all kinds of energy around him, because people were making up things about his condition, what got him there, and all of those things. And I just saw him as the love that he is. And as I saw each of us, and myself included.
Right. Thank you, teacher. Thank you so much, teacher. As I would do in class, I'm going to drop the pen, right? Thank you.
Well, it certainly is a demonstration of holding the truth. And despite the conditions, the situations, or the circumstances, you held the truth. And as you were saying, it had to be held from within first. You can't place it out there. I mean, you can. It's just not a very efficient way of using the law.
Right.
It is kind of a, you know, a roundabout way. But when I go in here, and as we move into this place of treatment, it's the grounding and the centering is for us to know the truth.
Right.
When we have that, whatever is in front of us, if it's a client or a person or a situation or a circumstance that's there, and they've come to us, or they want something to be different than it is, we have to know it from within. And we have been conditioned culturally to not tell the truth or not know the truth. We you know, go to the circumstances. We see what the results should be. And, you know, there's a lot of dissipation. But the capital T truth is that all there is love. God is in the middle of it all. And it is all good. That's how I keep it simple. There's many more principles that you can find in the textbook. But, you know, I'm one with the one. We're all one. And there is divine order in everything, and it's all love and it's all law. So I then don't become victim to the little lies that the ego calls me, you know, to go do, which has been, you know, we've had a collective agreement about circumstances. We have a collective agreement about, you know, this is what politics looks like, and this is what parenting looks like, and this is what this is. And there's limitation based on the person and where they may be. But the big truth is God is all there is, and that there is divine order, and there's unity in what we're moving, you know, not even from, because it's there all along, but it can be obscured by conditions, circumstances, and events, seemingly. And as Bonnie so aptly put it earlier, those are the weeds. And when we declare something, we call it forth, we call it claiming. And we'll talk a little bit about, more about affirmations and down the road. But when we claim something to be, oftentimes, it doesn't mean always, because even when I say that, I am putting into the subjective mind something else that I don't really want you to believe in, but it's been my belief. As soon as I do that, everything unlike itself will show up. That is a belief. It doesn't have to be, but it is something common that I've understood. So when I take that on, I go, oh, so I want to work on boundaries. I'll say, I want to work and be in a relationship. And I believe in unity and love and all of that. But when I look out in my life, is my life demonstrating that? It hasn't been. So where is the weeds? Where are the weeds in that? What's coming up? What's standing in the way as thoughts and beliefs and limitations that I've taken on? And that's what shows up oftentimes, is what is the barrier for us to know what the capital T truth is, because it's like the glasses we've been wearing. And we, in communication with one another, we have a belief system too that, gosh, I can't tell the stark, I call it this is not a science of mind term, but it just gets the point to me, to tell the stark ass naked truth, not the stuff that I flavor up. And because I'm talking to Janice, I need to talk to her in a certain way because my people pleasing comes into mind. And I know that she, I can relate to her from that level. No, it's I stand, as Maurice said earlier about his example. He and his friends stood in the truth. And they did it from the inside out. Not, and as Jack said, some of us need to be the teachers because we get to hear what we're saying. It's not that we have a lot of wisdom necessarily. I mean, we do, but we hear it best when it's coming out of here. And it's like, bam, because it's the truth. We can't deny the truth. When we step back and go, la, 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 here's the principles, it's like, oh yeah. So at the end of the day, I review the day, and I'm going to invite you as a practice to review your day. Where were you in your day? And look at your life and see what's happening in your life, because your life is always going to reveal the truth about what you believe. It's not the capital truth, capital T truth. It's the truth of what you believe and what are the weeds that are coming up. And then to be able to say that. And in your book, we talk a little bit about the truth. And, this is a famous Bible quote and from John 8:32. And I'm not prone to quoting scripture, but it's one of my favorite scriptures. And Ernest talks about it in a lot of different ways from different perspectives. But the scripture is one I'm really familiar with. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth will what?
Set you free.
Make you free.
There you go. So it's the ability to tell the truth, looking out in your life. And it's not about beating yourself up. It's not about taking your inventory in such a way that you feel like lower than worm dust, because that's not what the point is. The point is, look out, tell the truth. What might be the thoughts or the beliefs that are standing in the way, the limitations from you understanding and embracing that capital T truth that is always there. It's all God, there's divine order, and it's all love. So what may be standing in the way? What are the little, so when you're being with yourself in spiritual mind treatment, when, that place of where we release the lack and limitations, what are they? To be able to identify that which is standing maybe in your way will help you open the door to see that which was never obscured, but only from your mind. You know, it from your knowing, cultured, collective consciousness. And what we're doing as we're building a healing consciousness is opening the doors up wider. You know, and as many of us, and some of us in this room are seasoned people around this philosophy, I had the same experiences as Bonnie said today. I opened this book up and it was like, where's this been? I've never seen this before, but I'm ready to see it today because I'm willing to tell the truth. I have a curiosity. It's showing up in a way that I have questions, like Joel was talking about, and bam, there's an answer. And it's principle. And that's what we're operating off of when we're doing spiritual mind treatment. We're standing in principle, but we don't ignore the condition or the event. We acknowledge that that's present, but it isn't the capital T truth. It's like, yep, somebody's got a flesh eating bacteria. That's something that's happening on the human being level. But the truth, divine, perfect health,
right,
is there.
Right.
So with that, I yield back, Bonnie, to opening up for the entryway to spiritual mind treatment.
Okay, so let's if you have your books with you, let's look at the template. And it's page 2 in your study guide. Everybody got it? Yes. Give me a thumbs up. All right. Who's willing to read step 1? Read both the recognition and the example.
Sandria.
My God, is my name on everybody's list? Jesus. Okay. All right. Step 1. Recognition. You're showing something different. Is this, am I reading this? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Keep going.
Recognition. God is the one presence and power. That's in box 1. The example is there is one source of all. Peace and wholeness flow freely through every condition in life.
Good. So that's the first step. It's sort of like if God is all there is, right? Then everything, it's the first cause. It's the place where we begin to shape everything with our minds. Okay, number 2, who's going to read it? Avery.
You muted, Avery.
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Janice, do you have it in front of you?
Well, I'm looking at the screen.
Okay.
Unification.
Oh.
Avery, why don't you look at the screen and do it?
Okay, I see it. Okay, unification. I am part of God. God in me, as me is me. The vitality and wholeness of God are present in and through me and are a part of me.
So here's the first 2 steps that are really crucial. We have to hang out and kind of gossip about God, right? I mean, like, name all the wonderful things, all of the things that we can name in terms of what we would consider this presence, this God to be all about. And then we have to call it ourselves. Those first 2 steps are the real deal. When you can get to the point where you can absolutely be in the presence of God, call it out and name it as yourself, bam, that's the real consciousness. But then there's the next step. Number 3, who's going to do that?
I'll do it. Okay. Number 3 is realization. I am, I have, and realize that it is already mine. I embody the good I want to demonstrate, which in truth is mine now. An example would be, I realize that there is a source of vitality and peace right now in each cell, muscle, and organ, each part of my body. There's no pain in spirit, no pain in me. A sense of calm wells up in me and flows freely through my muscles, bringing release and relief.
Right. And knowing.
So it is.
Yes, and so it is. It's. Did you hear the power in that? And did you hear the power of where it's coming from? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then what's the next step? Who's going to read it?
Thanksgivings.
Yes.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the realization of the truth about myself. I'm thankful, knowing the truth is being manifested right now in my life. The power works, and I am grateful.
You know, it's like the gratitude that actually cements it. It's the gratitude that cements it in our consciousness, that we ask and we're grateful for it because we know it's coming. We're going to receive it. Now, does it mean I'm going to ask for a Lamborghini and I want it to be green and it's going to show up? No, but most likely a better request would be perfect transportation, and it will show up. It's like learning to shape the truth as for a higher thing. It's like we're never going to treat for somebody to be knocked over in their head because they said a bad word, right? We're not going to harm anything. Nothing that we are going to put into treatment is going to be harmful to someone else. But we are going to narrow it down into qualities. And the qualities are going to be the qualities of God. And so those qualities of God that we name in our requests that is the seed that is the most powerful. It's not like you can't ask for things, but you're really shaping it in the things in the mind of God. So the example I gave is perfect transportation. Perfect transportation. And then just wait and see what happens. All right, the next step then is?
Release.
Okay.
I let go and let God. My part is complete. I release this word into the law.
Yes.
An example, this treatment is released to the outpicturing of universal law. I know that my life is in the hands of God, and so it is.
And so it is. The thing about the release is to not dig it back up. You know, it's like we planted the seed and then we let it go. We're grateful for it and we let it go. Because if we keep digging it up or we keep repeating the same thing because it's not going our way, quote, 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 we don't really allow ourselves to really see the demonstrations. Chopra did a really good job about discussing this very thing. He talked about three conditions, 3 people having the very same medical conditions and 3 outcomes. So it has so much to do with really being receptive. And knowing that to be true, part of our cultivation of that receptivity is around really being ensconced into training your mind. And part of your training of your mind, so you're going to use this, not only the prayer treatments, your homework is going to require you to use this stuff. And Reverend Jack is going to put up a template that you can use where you're going to take a condition in your life and you're going to put it in these steps. You're going to write a treatment that will fit whatever this is. And then you're going to let it go. And you're going to let it go and you're going to anchor it by being in meditation during the week. that place where you can free your mind of trying to hang on, where you can really let yourself just flow, just be.
Honey, I have a question.
Yes.
So after I've released it,
Yes.
and the condition, like you said, possibly persists even after having completed the treatment.
Yes.
And doubt comes in. Do I treat again under those conditions, or?
You treat the doubt.
Yeah.
You treat the doubt.
Okay.
You treat the doubt.
And Bonnie, can we, from this place, because we have somebody that's new to all of this,
Yes.
Joel, would you mind reading the example all the way down to the end? Just start at the top and go all the way to end to this. So it is, because that in itself is a treatment, so that we can hear it and you can feel it as you're saying it.
Right.
Okay. There is one source of all. Peace and wholeness flow freely through every condition in life. The vitality and wholeness of God are present in and through me and are a part of me. I realize that there is a source of vitality and peace right now in each cell, muscle, and organ, each part of my body. There's no pain in spirit and no pain in me. A sense of calm wells up in me, flows freely through my muscles, bringing release and relief. I'm thankful, knowing the truth is being manifested right now in my life. The power works, and I am grateful. This treatment is released to the outpicturing of universal law. I know that my life is in the hands of God, and so it is.
So it is.
So it is. So I really wanted you to see the steps. We talked about the steps independently, but when it's all put together, there is a flow. And sometimes I hear myself and other people say, well, I don't have time to treat. I don't have time. But we have time to be in the worry, the doubt, the limitation, and the condition. And it's like, that took you 57 seconds to read. That was a powerful 57 seconds of putting it together, recognizing God is all there is, you're one with it, and that you're claiming what the truth is, and then you're grateful for it, and then you release it and let it be from what you've claimed it for. And it's, I mean, it sounds simple when I just said that. And as I was learning how to do treatment, it was challenging to know what to say in each of those steps. But when you let go and just know, okay, I'm in recognition, I am making a conscious contact with that which is already in me, and however way that looks. And I'm oftentimes prone to saying there is only one source. And there's actually a wonderful song that I was going to bring tonight, and that Lisa Ferrara and Erica Luckett do, and it just plays in my head a lot during the course of the day. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is my life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And it repeats it over and over. And if I do nothing else but that, and I'm connected into that presence and that oneness, and knowing that I'm there, whatever the other stuff is, it's happening, because I get to recognize and realize what it is that my heart's desiring, and claiming it and saying thank you and letting it go. And off I'm walking with my dogs or whatever. And as you go on into your chapter, it goes into the recognition and unification in a little bit more deeper way. But you get to individualize. This is what we were talking about, being the individualized expression of the divine, Well, every one of us will do this different. It's a template so that you recognize that there are 5 steps as what we're teaching. Some other places will teach 6 or 7 steps, but there's 5 steps in Science of Mind that we're looking at. Oneness, recognizing that God is all there is, and that I'm one with it. I claim that which is of my heart's desire. I give thanksgiving and I let it go. I take my hands off of the seed. I will not keep pulling it up and saying, grow, grow. I just let it, I trust that that process is happening. So there'll be more detail in your, and Bonnie, I didn't mean to get in your way.
No.
But I wanted to have the experience, and many of us have done treatment, but we also have someone here that hasn't seen it from this perspective. And I wanted it to be spoken in the.
Well, and what I love about it and what I want to comment about it is now in all of our subjective minds. We all heard it. You know, your mind is never not hearing what's going on. And so that, knowing that to be the truth, then it's sort of like, I like to, in my treatment, I like to say that the divine activity, that oneness, that one source has one activity, and that's to give itself to itself and receive itself from itself. It's sort of like the understanding that the very breath that we take is coming in and it nourishes every part of this body. And at the same time, it exits and releases everything that does not serve. And that which does not serve goes on to serve the greenery. So everything is giving and receiving. And when we understand that, then limitations take in a different way. So if I were to say to any of you, your gift, you are the gift, your design, your life is to be abundant of experience, of expression, of all kinds of balance, of joy, of everything that can be named. That is your life. And when you really know that and live from that place, then it's kind of exciting to get rid of the weeds. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I thought that idea doesn't fit in there. It doesn't fit in the I am. So a good way to look at it is that whatever you say, when you say I am, that's what you're putting into the subjective mind. So you want to be very careful about your words. So what do we do next, Diana? Anybody want to share? What's your reaction to what we've been talking about?
I have something I wanted to say. How much feeling is behind it is so important for me. I tend to have short prayers. My prayers are short. Some people have very long prayers. Some people have short prayers, but it isn't even about the words so much. If I just went, but I really, really meant it. And through that meant for me that I am God. I recognize God. I'm one with God. And I know that I'm deserving of my good. And the feeling behind that is what puts it out into the universe. So it's the feeling. It isn't so much about the words. It isn't so much, for me, it isn't so much about the words or how long my prayer is. It is that I really, really, really mean it.
Right. It's the fire. It's the fire. what makes prayer treatment really, really Zoom is the fire that we put into it. It's the essence of the, not only calling in the truth, but being willing to be fired up about it.
If I could offer an idea with
Well,
that.
actually, I just wanted to say one more thing. And for me, in the quantum physics of it, it's
Yes.
the vibration that I generate that actually lifts my vibration to the level of my vision.
Yes.
Or the level of my realization. So it's a vibrational quantum physics thing as well.
Right.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Janice.
I think it all goes, it's in synchronicity, because one of the things that I learned in my life, once I mastered the steps, then I could move into the energy of it. And I remember one time when Reverend Andriette and I were starting out in this teaching, and my good friend Chuck had had a massive stroke and heart attack and was in the La Honda Rehabilitation Center in San Francisco. I would go to visit him, and every day when I would leave, I would do a prayer treatment with him right before I left. And that was right at the time that I was really trying to incorporate this and really kind of learn this. Well, he had also experienced Reverend Andriette as being the master deliverer, if you will, of prayer treatment. And the one thing that they had in common with one another in their secular careers, both of them had been in sales. Chuck was in pharmaceutical sales, and Reverend Andriette sold as in the Pacific Bell Yellow Pages. Both won awards for being master salespeople. And so within this vernacular of being in sales, there are people that can make the cold call. There's people that can deliver the information. And then there is that master salesperson that you bring in for the close to get that deal closed. So Chuck could only say 3 words after his stroke. And so after about the 4th time of praying, he looked up at me and said, "Bring Andriette for the close." But what he was saying is, bring the fire, bring the passion, because he was a licensed practitioner as well. So that was his last coaching to me about how important it is, because that we were talking about truth as we started out tonight. The truth with a capital T comes from the energetic, comes from the fire, comes from that intention.
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, and when we first learn all of this, it is technique. And then there's something about letting go, and that fire bubbles up for me. That it took a while, because I have a little, not a little brain, but I have a brain that is ordered. Like, okay, what's step 1? What's step 2? And what do I say? And here are the examples that I can put in. Because when I first started doing this, we had to do written treatments and put them, you know, and send them in. And then the teachers looked at it, did their critique, you know, a little bit more here, less here, you're not, you know, and it's like, oh, okay. So is getting the technique. And it took a little while for the fire, because it was, I don't know that I even believed in the fire yet. You know, I believed in technique because that's where I was coming from. You know, I was coming out of a law enforcement background. So when someone said to me, act like this is one of your clients, or that you're, you know, and I hate the word demand, but it's like, you are the authority, and you're telling it, whatever it is to us. We're, you know, it's like, it's that's where I came from. Changed it altogether, because I couldn't go up as a cop or a correctional officer or a probation officer and say, hey, would you like to go down the hallway? No, that's not the way I would need to do it. So when I got that I could put it in the perspective of where I was coming from as a career person, that I got to tap into that fire, but use it in far more productive way than I felt that I ever did as being in law enforcement. So, but that fire is really important.
Something that was very important, and that is that we all start with where we are.
Yes.
Trying to be somebody else or anything at all. Wherever we are, we start. And one of the things that Diana said that was very important is that we can look into our lives and look around our lives, and with great loving eyes, we can see what we believe. Because what we believe is shown up in our life. So it's not a chainsaw massacre, but it's an understanding that we start where we are. So we're not going to go over someplace where we're not. We're going to come right where we are and treat from those places.
Yes. So you're going to get the opportunity this week to write your treatment down. There is a form in your book. You can follow that from, there's a couple of lines at each of the things, but it's the thing that, I would encourage you, and it doesn't necessarily say this. Well, yes, it does. Before beginning my treatment, I determined the purpose of my treatment. I state first the condition I wish to change. So that's recognizing that there is something that, condition, circumstance, or event, or as the instructions have been, I think that's in your book, that would say, whatever it is that you came here, what was your goal? Write a treatment around your goal. And again, it could change from last week, or what, and I'm going to add, or whatever is on your heart. If there is a condition or a circumstance that you want to practice writing a treatment for, do that. And because we want you to connect into it. This is not just a exercise. It is practice. So, if you need to start off at more of a neutralized practice, do so. Or if there's something in your life that you desire, or there's something in your life that seems to be a barrier, step in, claim that purpose, see that condition. Don't claim the condition, see it, and it's like, so what? And I wish, and then the condition I wish to experience as a result of the treatment. It's not the condition that created the treatment. It's the condition I want as a result of the treatment. That makes sense?
It does. And think of Maurice's story about seeing his friend healed.
Yes.
You're not treating the diagnosis. You're treating the truth that is the perfect health.
Any questions around this? Any comments? Any ahas through what we talked about?
So it's my understanding that you treat for the result only once. And then you treat for whatever comes up to stand in the way of that. That's what maybe the continuing treatment.
No, Holmes said you treat until the condition changes.
Okay, all right.
So that could be what's coming up in consciousness.
Right.
So whatever that is, the lack, the limitation, or whatever it is that's coming up,
right,
then treat for that. Treat for doubt, treat for, but it may be the same focus point. The what you want for the person, or what that person is asking for, or what you want, but you're seeing the weeds come up, and so you treat as a result of, oh, this is in the way. I'm seeing this now. You can't see the vista because the weeds are there, and then you pull the weed, and it's like, whoa, there's that peace of mind.
Right.
I see.
Right, and thank you so much for that, Diana, because I think a lot of us do not realize how much our minds are conditioned. You know, our parents conditioned us, where we went to school conditioned us, where we live conditioned us. You know, our whole life is a set of conditions. And sometimes we need to look at those and allow ourselves to get more into the truth of it. And so it takes a while. And that's why you always want to meet yourself where you are. It is not, you know, it is not the idealized thing. It's wherever you are, this is the perfect place, because that's where God is. There is no place where God is not. No situation, nothing, zero, no place where God is not. Wow.
Thank you for that. I also think it's important to realize, you know, the power of the group.
Yes.
You know, and if you can remember of a time, at one point in time in the history of Heart and Soul, we were looking for a new church home.
Right.
And so they wrote a prayer treatment for the perfect church home. And the call was that everybody in the congregation said the same prayer treatment at the same time every day. And so that was my first understanding of, oh, you just don't pray for it once and then let it go. There is a collective power, and knowing at noon every day, everyone is going to be affirming the same spiritual prayer treatment at the same time. I think for some of the work that we are called to do in our projects and coming together, there could be the power of 2 or 3 people aligned with the same thing for the quiet around my home when the Hells Angels are going by. You know, to know that peace and tranquility, whatever we meet, could be the prayer treatment that all 11 of us do simultaneously at the same time. So thank you for that, Diana.
Yes. And one more thing is that I'm going to speak for myself and let Diana and Reverend Jack speak for themselves. But I offer to you that during this course, I am your practitioner. Meaning that if you need a practitioner, which is what we've trained to do, you can call me. And my phone number is 510-282-4048. And during this time, I will not be charging you. I will not be charging you, but I will be treating for you. You can call me and we'll figure it out.
Bonnie, would you repeat your number?
Right. 510-282-4048.
Thank you.
And I've just placed mine in the chat. I'll say it, 415-454-9474. And please utilize this, you know, see what it feels like to be on the other side of it. You know, it's amazing. So thank you, Bonnie, for that, because, you know, it's where I definitely had a lot of growth when I leaned into somebody else to hold the truth for me, when I was in it and I was in the weeds. And, you know, I know that there are 3 other practitioners on the call, but, you know, we're here to serve, to see, because, you know, we treat for one, we treat for all. That's how we've said yes to building a healing consciousness on the planet.
And the most important thing, I think, that's really the metaphysical side of this, none of us are treating for someone else when we treat for somebody else. We're treating for ourselves. So when you were to, if you were to call me, it's serving me. It's serving me. This is the metaphysical side and the quantum side of what we're talking about, is that the energetic. And the interesting part, to be in an honest way, is that I've never had somebody call me that didn't call me with without it being an issue that I'm dealing with. That's the amazing part about all this too, is that, you know, most of the people that call me are carrying to me my own issues. And for that reason, it's like, again, as I've suggested, it's the grand adventure. It's the grand adventure. It can be very intimidating at first about all of this, but if you treat it as a grand adventure and be honest with yourself and be willing to tell us when you don't agree, because when you don't agree, we get to play with the conflicts, because we all have them. We all have conflicts. And the only way that we can do it, I love how Diana is using my language of weeds, but it's that place where we have to dig around. It's not the beautiful plant that we have to dig around. It's the weeds that we have to dig around.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you everyone for your participation tonight and being here, bringing all of you and your glimmers and your ahas and your willingness to step out on and in faith, because it will carry us, you know, where our hearts desire, together, collectively, and individually, as the individuated aspects of the divine. And, you know, sometimes when I'm sitting here and I'm listening, I get such tears that I can see the presence and the face of God in each of you. It's just overwhelming sometimes, that it is just a wash of love, that it's like, pinch me, because, you know, this is the life that I envisioned. Because, you know, I like waking up with companions and being in community and knowing that we're here at a level, at our own individual levels. And, you know, as Maurice was talking about what he's up to have the world be a better version of itself.
Right.
And we're bringing our parts. So thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Jack. It's time to wrap up, and we're going to do an invocation. And I don't know if, Bonnie, would you like to, or would you like for me to, or
James? I'll be glad to do the benediction.
Okay, oh, excuse me, benediction.
It's all right, it's all right, all right. So let's just let ourselves go into a deep breath together. Recognizing this very breath as the very life of all of creation. And being in just pure delight that this life, this total delight, is my life. And so I bless that we had this time together. I know that the words were spoken in truth, and each one of us are taking from this spoken word exactly what we need to hear. I know that each one of us are blessed as we go back into our own lives and leave this Zoom call, that each one of us bless each other and hold each other in high regard for this next week, and that we complete all assignments and homework and reading with ease and grace. And if this truth resonates with you, say, and so it is.
And so it is.
So it is.
So it is.
All right, that speaking of the homework, chapter 17 of the Science of Mind book, pages 279 to 293. And the power of meditation is pages 56 to 60. And so I'm hoping that each of you at least once this week did your meditation. And this week's meditation is about setting up that altar that we talked about before, with special objects and spending time in front of your altar, whatever that is. You know, there's no script about how that needs to look, but he describes that in pages 56 to 60. And we'll look forward to hearing your your experiences and your glimmers, your ahas, and bring your treatments. And, you know, maybe one of you will want to share your treatment with us so that we all can anchor and ground in it. Because remember, it's all about the one.
It's all about love. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, everyone else, for participating. If you have any questions during the week or want to reach out to me, you can contact me at elderprideinfo@gmail.com. And, you know, we'll be certainly there. Reach out to Bonnie. Bonnie is a master practitioner, and, you know, I love spending time with her. So I think you should give yourself the gift over these next weeks to have a practitioner session with Bonnie, to have a practitioner session with Diana, to have a practitioner session with Janice, and to have a practitioner session with Betty, because what you will see, what is all alike, and that individualized way of each of us and how we bring our calling to the table. So with that, I wish you love. I wish you good night, and we'll see you next week.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary
Oh,
Ellen.
it is.
So.